Good morning, YouTube. This is the Fat Health Teacher. I wanted to get into some news before I start today's topic. Today's topic is going to be the idea of diminishing returns. Uh, okay, so first bit of news. It looks like Bob is finally getting some help. He asked to be taken to a hospital last night. He got a friend to take him. As far as I know, he is still in. So hopefully there's going to be some stabilization rather for him in that regard. Second, the boys decided that summer camp's not working for him. It starts a little early, which is 9 a.m. and well, I'm not going to apologize to you parents who have kids that wake up at 6 a.m., but I will say that trying to put him to bed early has been challenging, so he's been going to bed closer to 9 or 10. And in order for him to not be short on sleep and be a cranky little jerk, he needs to be able to sleep in. Camp starts at 9, and he's usually still sleeping at 9. So him not wanting to go to camp actually is not going to be that big a deal. He's old enough that for the most part he can entertain himself if that's needed with toys or books, or his current obsession, which is Blaze and the monster trucks. By the way, if you have not checked out Blaze and the monster trucks, I'm actually going to put a little scroll thing down here at the bottom. It's a fantastic show. Christina Ricci, if you remember her from Addams Family, she has her doctorate now. She was behind this show. I believe she's also behind the show Umizoomi. Both of them are things that I really like, very different from the programming that was available when I was a child. In Blaze and the Monster Trucks, they talk about a lot of engineering concepts, which is very cool. They have talked about chain reactions. They talk about, I don't know if they've used the word parabola, but Odin came in yesterday, and he was talking about combustion and how combustion causes things to catch on fire and things along those lines. So I really like what he's learning from these videos, and it doesn't bother me terribly that he wants to watch them over and over. Well, maybe it bothers me a little bit, but it's okay because he's learning a lot from them. All right. I've been working in the yard. We have an old RV slab from the people who owned the house before us, and I'm taking out half of it. So half of it is perfectly level. It's awesome. The other half has a giant crack running down the center, and water pools on it. So it doesn't really work for having your patio table or anything else like that out there. So I'm using a big sledgehammer. It's probably only 10 pounds. It feels a whole lot heavier. And I'm breaking it apart in bursts of 10 slams. So anyway, what I'm doing is I am swinging the sledge, doing 10 hits, kind of working my way from the outside to the middle, because that seems to make the most sense. I'll do 3 to 4 rounds of this. I'm getting some nice form as far as getting into a deep squat as I am pulling the sledge down to break apart some of the concrete. And then, between sets, I am using a hammer and a pry bar to kind of pull the chunks out of the way so that I can get closer and closer to the middle. I haven't made a whole lot of progress yet. If you look up here, there are going to be some photos of what I'm looking at, what I'm trying to do. So as I was saying, I have discovered that reading off of my laptop using the Kindle app is much more convenient than trying to read off of the book. Primarily because I have access to a full keyboard when I'm taking notes, and believe me, I am taking notes. So I'm still working on mindset. I think I'm at about the halfway mark, but I probably got more reading done last night after I discovered how convenient it was to read on my laptop than I had in the previous 2 weeks. One of my goals for next week is going to be to do some tiling, so I actually am planning to make a trip to the hardware store to get some of the last things that I need in order to do that. But that is very exciting because that's going to be in the boys' bathroom. And as soon as I get the tile and grout done, I can hook them up with their toilet, which they have been very patient about. The tile that I picked is actually kind of nice. I noticed when I was in California on vacation that a lot of places are using this tile. It's a 2x1, so 2 feet by 1 foot tile. So it's about, let me lean back here, I don't know, this big. and it's a nice brown color. I think it'll go really well with the green that they chose for their walls. Um, it's about time that their bathroom got up and running. The shower is going to be a bit more of a challenge because I've got to put down the plastic. I've got to build them oh, now I can't, a threshold between the floor of the bathroom and the floor of the shower, and then pour a new pan, and then do all the tiling because the entire enclosure is tiled. So that's going to be rather interesting. Okay, now on to our diminishing returns topic. So the idea behind diminishing returns is that you do A and you get B. And sometimes, often, the more A you do, the more B you get. But what you find is that that's not true in some situations. So, for example, if I'm trying to lose weight and I decide that I'm going to do walking, okay, and I'm walking 2 miles an hour, which is actually a pretty slow pace, but that's about where I am right now. And so I walk, all right? When I first start the activity, I'm going to see some pretty significant gains. If I keep doing that same activity, let's say I do a mile, right? And I'm always walking at that 2 mile an hour pace. What's going to happen is I'll initially see some rewarding changes. I will feel healthier, perhaps my mood will improve, things along those lines. But eventually I'm not going to get out of the walking. The benefit that I'm getting from it is not going to be as great as it was when I initially started. Okay, and so what I'm going to need to do is I'm going to need to make it harder. So I will either need to walk faster, I'll need to change the incline of where I'm walking, I'll need to walk for longer periods. But still, if all I'm doing is walking, there is going to be a point where I could be walking for 3 hours a day, and it's just not improving my health to the degree that I initially saw. So when it comes to drug use, you will see this idea of diminishing returns or diminished rewards. So let's say the first time you snort a line of cocaine or the first time you take a hit of meth, you feel fantastic, you have a lot of energy, you feel productive, all of that good stuff, and it gets you high, and you very much enjoy that high. Well, if you keep using the drug, that same amount of drug, so let's say it's like 1 line, or I don't even know how this stuff is measured, but let's say you just do 1, right? Okay, so the drug that I used at the beginning gave me X reward. And what's going to happen is this is actually called chasing the high, where if I want to continue to feel that pleasure that I got the first time that I used the drug, I may need to use more of the drug in order to get it. But what can happen is, so let's say I do 1 line, I get X feeling. Maybe next time I have to do 2 lines in order to get there. And it's probably not going to be like the very next time I use. I may stay at 1 line for a while. But eventually what's going to happen is I'm going to start using more in order to try to get that initial pleasure feeling. Okay, but I'm not going to be getting it. And in fact, something that Bob reported to me is his most recent use of meth. He felt like he didn't actually take meth. He felt like somebody had swapped it out because he didn't get high. He didn't get the pleasure that he normally gets out of using. And so this was contributing to his paranoia and to his belief that there was a big conspiracy out there in which he was the center, or rather the target. Okay, when it comes to money, we also see this idea of diminishing returns. So there have been multiple studies that have come out where people have said, well, does money truly make people happy? Like, what is the perfect number? A couple of years ago, I saw a study that said that the perfect number was $75,000 a year. That if you make $75,000 a year, this is a good, like, kind of point between if you're making more than that, now you're putting in so much time that you're not getting as much pleasure out of the money. And if you're making less than that, you're more likely to be living paycheck to paycheck and trying to just get ends to meet kind of thing. The most recent number that I heard was 83,000, and this was from a crash course episode on whether or not money gets you happiness, or the effect of money and happiness, that kind of thing. So it's important to remember that if you are trying to make changes about yourself, that whatever your goal is, you want to change what you're doing in order to get to that goal. Okay? So you want to make sure. So let's say I have checking. Okay, we're going to go back to the money thing again. If I'm putting $5 a week into my checking or savings account, but it isn't any, it isn't a special account, it's not a high yield or anything like that. Yeah, that money is going to be there, and I might be getting a part of a percent on it every year. But that money would actually do better if I used it to either pay down debt or if I were able to put it into something where it would make more money. And I don't even know if this is making sense because I'm not like an expert when it comes to money. So my partner is actually way better with money than I am. But yeah, so the idea of diminishing returns. This is probably going to be a short video because you know what? I'm about done. Oh, I totally wanted to plug Derek and Romain. So Derek and Romain is a show that used to be on OutQ Radio. OutQ actually fired them almost a year ago, and so then they were just kind of like trying to figure out what they were doing. OutQ Radio was known by my partner, my former partner, as Big Gay Radio, and they talk about a lot of different topics. And what they decide to do is, well, you know, Sirius fired us, but that doesn't mean that we can't still have a show. And so they worked their butts off, and they got Derek and Romain 2.0 up and running, which has been so much fun to listen to. I'm trying to remember Derek's last name. I can't remember it at the moment. Romain's last name is Patterson. She has done a lot of body positive work. She's done a lot of awareness work. I'm totally spacing on stuff right now. But one of her best friends, one of her friends when she was in high school, was killed because he was gay. The Trevor Project. So she's very active with the Trevor Project. She's done a lot of public speaking. And to be honest, it's just really nice and fun to hear how they interact with each other and to hear how they interact with their listeners. Last night they talked a little bit of politics, and Derek was actually able to explain in ways that I hadn't really been able to articulate kind of the current status in the Democratic Party with regards to the people who are in the primary and Clinton versus Bernie and how things are kind of playing out, and it was very interesting to hear. I haven't heard whether or not they're probably not going to, because these are signatures of their old shows, but they used to do things like My Big Gay Problem. Romain had an episode serial that she would do on where she would talk specifically to people about sexual issues. And as I said, it's just really nice to hear people that are very positive. And that's not to say that they don't ever say mean things, but in general, they're just really positive. And if you remember when I was talking about the talk, I said that one of my big messages that I give to my kids, to my students, is that if you want to do it, then everybody that is participating in that activity has to be okay with it, right? And you want to take proper precautions, you want to do all this stuff. And that's kind of her big message is, look, everybody needs to enjoy themselves. And if they're not, then you need to change things up. And if people don't want to participate, then they should not be forced to participate. And that includes you, right? That your partner doesn't get to guilt trip you and things along those lines. All right. I will see you all tomorrow, maybe. I have an MRI tonight. That should be interesting. I haven't shared this previously, but I have been running a fever most afternoons. It's improved slightly, but my test numbers have not been things that make the doctors happy. So they're trying to figure out what's going on. And if I find out and I'm not too devastated or whatever, I may or may not share that with you. But there you go. If I decide not to post this weekend, I hope that you all have a fantastic weekend. Stay out of the heat. Make sure you're using sunscreen. Stay hydrated. Need lots of water. Eat your fruits and veggies. And I think that's it for now. I will talk to you all later. This is the Fat Health Teacher signing out.